nation, feel so alive. Summer rhythms flame, we're gonna thrive. Go, 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 oh, shout it out loud. Hear the summer sun, we're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Brazil Ball, the podcast all about Brazilian football. Dorival Jr. kicks off his stint at Corinthians with a win. Red Bull Bragantino continue their march up the table, and Cruzeiro quietly sneak up on Flamengo. All of that and much more to come in today's episode. Hello, everybody. Yeah, we're looking today at match day 7 of the Brasileirão. I'm your host, James, as always, and I'm joined, as ever, by my co-host, George. Welcome along, George. How have you been doing?
Yeah, come by to you, James. Come by to anybody watching or listening. And yeah, I've been doing all right, James. Thank you. It was bank holiday over here, wasn't it? For many of us over the weekend, so a long weekend again, which was nice. Obviously, again, my team, I'm repping my team this evening. Champions again, parade in the city centre yesterday. Wild scenes there. So, yeah, I'm doing okay, James. Looking forward to getting into some Brazil football again. So, yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I wondered if you might be getting along to the parade there, but you didn't, did you?
No, I didn't go in the end. I think it was just a bit too busy for me, James. I thought about it, but then I just thought, well, I can sit and watch it better, on kind of the telly, really, if I must admit. It was absolutely jammed full of people, people climbing up walls, people climbing up, shops, people climbing up and falling off trees and lampposts and all sorts. So, yeah, wild scenes, celebrations. So, and the boys themselves looked like they had an absolute ball. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, the players do tend to enjoy that. We've got one coming up for Liverpool, 26th of May. There's apparently going to be 1 million people, up to 1 million people. It's about a 5-hour parade in the end. I don't know how the players keep the energy for it, but they always do turn out well and keep showing up for the fans. So it's always a good day. So that's a nice way to spend a bank holiday Monday for sure. But George, it's not relevant to what we're talking about today. So you can wear your Leeds shirt all you like, but that is going to be the last mentioned Leeds. There's no Brazilians in Leeds at the minute. There might be some on the way this summer. We'll have to see once the transfer window gets going. But so like I said, we're here to talk about match day 7 of the Brasileirão. It was another very interesting match day as the table starts to kind of take more shape, really. Some very interesting results, as I alluded to a couple there. And why don't you give us the full list, George, and run down the all 10 results?
It would be my pleasure, James. And it was a very sparse, in terms of goals, James. Actually, 6 of the 10 games ended 0-0, but we'll go through them. Sorry, 1-0. So we'll go through them. Saturday, May the 3rd, Sao Paulo 0, Fortaleza 0. Serie A 1, Vitória 0.
What the heck happened there?
I don't know. Just mind block. Corinthians 4 into 2. Fluminense 2, Sport Recife 1. Bahia 1, Fogo 0. Grêmio 0, Santos 0. Sorry, Grêmio 1, Santos 0. Vasco 0, Palmeiras 1. Cruzeiro 2, Flamengo 1. RB Bragantino 1, Mirassol 0. And Juventude 0, Galo 1. So the one I messed up, James, was Ceará 1, Vitória 0. For some reason, I had just a mental block there. Forgive me for that.
Yeah, you also said it was Grêmio 0, Santos 0 before you corrected yourself. So I had a bit of a nightmare there. 10 results, 2 of them were kind of botched a bit. So hopefully that's not a kind of a precursor for the rest of the show. Yeah, so like you said, a lot of 0-0s, 1-0s. Obviously, you've got your 0-0 again, haven't you? It's obviously to cover. But yeah, it was a kind of tight, like you said there, 6 1-0s, another 0-0. So not loads of goals to get into, but plenty of intrigue in the matches. So let's kick it all off, George, as we always do, with the quiz of the week. What have you got for us this time?
So the question, James, will you get it right? Let's see if you can. So you mentioned up at the top there that Dorival Jr., James, has made his comeback into the Brasileirão after a stint with the national team. Now, obviously, his latest, team he managed in the Brazilian Serie A was Sao Paulo. And what I want to know today, James, who was Dorival Jr.'s last game against? December 2023. I also want to know, it was a 1-0 win for Sao Paulo. I also want to know who of the current Sao Paulo squad scored the winning goal that day.
It's a pure guesswork. I don't know the answer, so it's pure guesswork. Last game could literally be anybody. I don't know. Santos. They went down.
It was Flamengo, a 1-0 win over Flamengo.
Pretty good result.
Yeah, it was. But who scored the goal, James? Who scored the winning goal?
I don't know.
It's a man we speak about fairly, a fair amount.
Probably Neves.
Yeah, it was Luciano Neves. He got the winning goal in that game, a 1-0 win early December 2023. That was his last in charge of Sao Paulo and his last before this weekend in the Serie A.
Well, there you go. Yeah, very tough one that, but still interesting to know. Right, George, like you said, his Dorival Jr.'s last game there was for Sao Paulo. He's obviously not there anymore, but you were covering Sao Paulo this week. And as I mentioned, it was another 0-0 for you in your game of the week. Sao Paulo just can't seem to buy a win at the minute. We spoke about how last week how they're still unbeaten. That remains the case after another game week. So 7 matches, still unbeaten now after Flamengo's lost, the only team that are unbeaten in Serie A. But they still can't get a win over the line. Another win over the line. This is a poor result for them, really.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there rightly so, James. And now the only team in the Brasileirão that are unbeaten now. But to me, that's not that impressive when you've played 7 and you've drawn 6 of them. And like I said last week, James, one of these 2 teams needed a win quite predictably. And with me being the game of the week as well, it was a 0-0 draw. I think that 3 I've had of the 7 that we've covered now have been 0-0, which is quite uncanny, really. It's quite incredible, to be fair. But there you go. I mean, to me, this was a very, very even game. I know Voivoda said that he thought Fortaleza shaded it. And they seem to be focusing Fortaleza on the fact that Voivoda has never lost against Sao Paulo in his time as Fortaleza manager. He's never lost to them, but that doesn't take anything away from it. It was an awful game of football, very, very even. Only 5 shots on target in the whole game. That is from both the 2 sides. Just not a great watch. They did miss a penalty. Did Ferreira? It was saved by João Ricardo. That was in the second half, midway through the second half. But it just stank of just nothing really, and it was just a poor result for both teams. And like I said, Sao Paulo unbeaten all the way, James. But when you've drawn 6 of them, it's not really that impressive, is it, to be quite honest? And I don't think, like I said, I think it was last week, I don't think the hierarchy of Sao Paulo will take much more of drawing. I think Zubeldia needs to win a game very, very quickly. They do have Alanzan Lima in the Libertadores, so they're traveling to Peru late tonight UK time. So we'll see if they can win that. They do seem to have done a little bit better in the Libertadores, and like you pointed out last week, James, they are still unbeaten in all competitions. But for me, they just need to do better in the league. And Fortaleza are the same. I mean, they're in the relegation zone now, James. They've only 1 win, and that was on the opening day of the season against Fluminense, wasn't it? Too many draws. And yeah, you've got to say, I don't think he's got that much longer. They play early doors tomorrow in the Libertadores against Colo Colo. I saw Colo Colo, some of the fans were in trouble. I think they were nicking fireworks. So they got in trouble for this one. They are in Brazil as well. But yeah, they just need something. They need a win. I don't think he's got that much longer left, you know.
Maybe they're the first team to draw 6 of the first 7 games since 2003 in the Brazilian Serie A, so it has happened before. Yeah, they just can't seem to get over the line. Ferreira's been in good form, so for him to miss the penalty, obviously a frustrating moment. They did throw the young man on, Ryan Francisco, who we spoke about last week. The other 2 youngsters, Alves and Ferreira, who we've spoken about as well, and Lucas Ferreira. Yeah, Ferreirinha is the guy who missed the penalty, isn't he? All play. I mean, Alves and Ferreira both started the game, couldn't inspire them as well. So it's just been a bit of a kind of a struggle. I saw Zubeldia was talking about how maybe it is better to win one, lose one, because you get more points, basically. But I think there is still something to be said for them being unbeaten and managing to not be beaten, because, sooner or later, you hope that those draws turn into wins. I mean, if they don't, then he's in trouble. But being hard to beat isn't a bad thing, really, but they do just need to start turning them into wins. As for Fortaleza, George, I mean, we haven't really spoken about them too much this season, but they have had a really poor start as well. They've only won one. They're in the relegation zone as things stand. Do you think Voivoda's possibly looking over his shoulder a little bit as well and thinking, well, they came, fourth last year or third in the end, was it? They were looking at a title push at one point. They were the story of the season, really, and Voivoda was an incredible part of that. But this isn't quite good enough, is it? Even if it is a more of a... I mean, to be fair, Fortaleza, even though they overperformed last year, they haven't been doing badly in the years past. They did come fourth in a few years ago. They've tended to be mid-table. So to be in the relegation zone is a real a downturn for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I think even at this early stage, James will be really, really disappointed after finishing fourth last season. It was a great season. Like you said, they were pushing towards the title quite a long way up into the season. They were well in it. So for Paulo Valvo, for Voivoda to have them down in the relegation zone, I do think he'll be looking over his shoulder. One win all season. Like I said, it came in on the opening day. I don't think he's got that much longer left. I don't think both of these managers have too longer left if it carries on like this. Another few draws and people are going to start asking serious questions. I know Voivoda's been there for a little while now, hasn't he? Perhaps he has a little bit of clout. But even still, like you said, they're in the relegation zone. Even at this early stage of the season, I don't think the hierarchy are going to take that after. With sort of with a great season. It's like Fogo. With a great season, the expectation then rises for the next season. They're not quite hitting it this time. Neither are Fogo, are they? So for me, he doesn't have that much longer left. I'm going to say, James, if they don't win a game in the next kind of 2 or 3 weeks, I think he's finished.
Yeah, it would seem harsh, but it wouldn't be a surprise, really, would it? To be fair, given the start and given that if they don't start turning things around soon, they are in for a relegation scrap. So on the back of last year, they would have. I mean, they lost some key players, didn't they? Averaldo, Daciano. Sorry, no, they were here, weren't they? But they did still lose some players. And yeah, I think they would have expected to be doing better. So he deserves a bit of credit. Like I said, he does have lots of credit in the bank. I think he does deserve a little bit longer, but you can only give so long when you are looking at that bottom 4. Okay, George, was there anything else you wanted to touch on in this game, game of the round?
Not really, James. Like I said, it was quite a dull game, really. Like I said, the flash moment being the penalty, but it was saved. Both managers are looking over the shoulders. I don't think either one, if they continue this form, have got anything, have got long left, really. One of them needs a win. Both of them need a win pretty soon, really.
Yeah, they do, for sure. We'll have to keep an eye on that as The next weeks go on. Like I said, Sao Paulo have got Palmeiras. I mean, that looks incredibly tough for them. Obviously, a big derby game for Fortaleza at Juventude, so a big kind of relegation 6-pointer perhaps early on in the season. Okay, well, let's move on then, George. My game of the round was we were looking at a team who, as I mentioned at the top there, have been really motoring along up the table. That is Red Bull Bragantino. And I mean, we would have expected them to win this game against Mirassol. But Mirassol have been an awkward opponent for big teams already this season, and have been tough to beat themselves. So it wasn't a given that they would win this, but they did win it, George. It was very, very tight in the end. It was a really close game by the look of it. Both teams were kind of having a real go. It didn't look like there was any one team really kind of dominating. But RBB, our man Pitta, Isidro Pitta popped up into injury time, second minute of 5 minutes added on. I know you were pushing for this one for goal of the round, weren't you, Josh? So why don't you describe it too, as it was a very well taken finish right at the end of the game?
Yeah, I was, James, and I just Red Bull Bragantino are unbelievable. Really, they've really put the cat amongst the pigeons early on. That's why Seabra won, manager of the month. He's really done a good job. I know they did lose coincidentally in the cup in the first leg against Krishima on Thursday night, but the back to winning ways. And how against Mirassol in, like I said, in the 92nd minute. It was a lovely goal. It was a long ball up the field from the defender. And Pitta, it was just a really nice first touch to take it away from the defender, and then he put it in with his right foot, I think, into the bottom corner. It was just a lovely finish. And I think from the ones, I think there was 18 goals in all this round, James. Like we know, there weren't that many. I thought it was well up there, for goal of the round. But, obviously you thought otherwise, which is fair enough. But, it was good to see Pitta scoring as well. I think that's only his second, is it, of the season, second or third. Yeah, so we know that he can score goals on his day. And he seems to be a bit more of a bit part player for RBB so far. I know they've got Sasha, haven't they, which I think they hang the hat more often on. But, yeah, lovely goal, won the game, And they're always tight games, but they do seem to chalk up a lot of 1-0 results, and that's all you need, isn't it? Part of Mirassol, really, really hard to beat. Although they are finding themselves, James, now further down the table, aren't they?
They are, yeah. So just on RBB, that was their fifth win in a row in the league. Obviously, they did lose that one against Krishima, but they've won 5 in a row, and it does put them up to second, the level on points with Palmeiras. So they are really, like you said, putting the cat amongst the pigeons, really. And they started the end of the last season very, very well under Seabra. He must have a really good record overall with them, because he seems to have barely lost. I know when he first came in, he was drawing a lot of games. Just an interesting point to mention. I know Pitta's there wheeling away, celebrating, and it was an extra special win for them because it was the first game that they're playing at the Cicero de Sousa Marques, which is their new stadium but it's not a permanent home. So basically, their old stadium has been demolished. The Nabi Abi Chedid has been demolished, and they are playing at this Cicero Stadium for the next 4 or 5 years. So it's going to take 4 or 5 years to build a new stadium, which looks pretty nice, to be fair. But yeah, it's going to take a little while. So they're playing here in the meantime. I think it's only got a capacity of about 12,000, not a big stadium, but the fans had a big party, it seems, before the game, just to welcome to have a bit of a kind of a housewarming, really, and to celebrate being in the new place. So it was good that they were able to get that win, and it kind of all adds to the feel-good factor around them at the minute. But yeah, Mirassol, I was surprised to see that they are actually 16th now, George. We're just 1 point above the relegation zone, which feels a bit wrong, to be fair, given the form that they've been in. That was only the second loss of the season, so that they're not, like I said, they are very difficult to beat, but they haven't been winning games. They've only won the one, I think. That was a big one against Gremio. So, they're starting perhaps just to get that sinking feeling after a bit of an early flurry. I know you were talking up the manager last week, Guananes, talking about him a potential manager of the month winner, but I don't think he's going to win it this time.
Well, it's too early to say, isn't it? First game of the month, James. Have lost it, crushing to losing the added on time, and yeah, it does. Like you said, it does seem a little bit wrong to say that they're, just hovering above the relegation zone, because they do seem to have done okay. But then again, 7 points, it's very crowded in that sort of area, in all areas of the table, isn't it now? And just a win would see them back into mid-table. So, but like you said, is that it now for their flurry of goodness at the start of the season? And is it all downhill from here? Who knows? But just to mention Seabra, you did mention his record, James. 30 games in charge. That was his 30th game in charge of Red Bull Bragantino. He's won nearly half of his games in charge. He's won 14 of those 30 games. So he's done all right. Seven draws, 9 losses. It's not too bad, really, when you look at it like that. Average of 1.6 points a game.
Yeah, it's very good, really. We have to frame it a little bit, because RBB obviously had a shocking season last year, managed to stay up, but that wasn't the norm for them. They've tended to be in and around the kind of top 7, top 8 over the last few years. So they're obviously part of the Red Bull machine. They don't believe that they should be in those kind of lower places. They are obviously trying to build something, as we've seen in the other RB teams. Salzburg can't really compare, because it's a small league without any real, there's a few teams in there who are very historic, but it was easier to get to the top in that league. But RB Leipzig have struggled to overturn the top teams in Germany. And Red Bull Bragantino, I think, would probably saw themselves as being on a similar kind of path, trying to disrupt the big boys a little bit. Obviously, last year was a blip in their hopes to do that, but they look like they're back on track for it. And I don't think they'll maintain it. It's very early to say, but I really do like Seabra. I think he's a very good coach. I know we've spoken about him before at Cruzeiro last year. I think he was very unlucky to be fired there. The fans somehow, for some reason, turned against him, and it seemed a little bit kind of out of kind of kilter with how the season was going. But he's come back, and Cruzeiro, to be fair, themselves are having an excellent campaign. But RBB, I think we have to recalibrate a little bit. I'm not sure where you had them actually in the preseason table, but I think you had them in the top half, I would say. But I don't think anybody saw them doing quite as well as this. But whether they can maintain it or not, that's another thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, James. It's one thing starting well. We're only 7 games in, isn't it? Things can change very, very quickly, but, you've got to get points on the board, and they have done so far. Seabra, very impressive coach. Like you said, they have got the Red Bull money behind them. It is a bit of a juggernaut in terms of, footballing kind of companies and everything like this. It has got clout in that way as well. So, it would have been a disaster for them to go down to Serie B last year. So they'd be, brushing the forehead saying, phew, we dodge a bullet there last season, and now they can just move forward. And they have an impressive team, actually, I think. And it's a team full of very, gifted players here. Lots of firepower up in the top end of the pitch, in particular. And so, I don't fancy them to continue as they are, but I do think they will be up around the top, maybe 6 or 7 teams, maybe. 7 games is a good sort of barometer, I think, of how the season's going to look. To me, and maybe they're a bit like Fortaleza were last season, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. You can see the table does start to take shape after around about 7 games. It's not. It's a fifth of the way through, pretty much. So it's still like a long way to go. But it's enough to see where teams might kind of be starting to fall. As we say with Mirassol, they're probably going to be in and around the relegation places. RBB are probably going to be up there in the Copa Libertadores places. So well done to them. Seabra backed up his our player, the manager of the month award last week with another win. So he's on for maybe 2 for 2. But as you said, George, it's still early days for that. Right, let's move on then. Let's take a look at who won the player of the round this time. Yeah, there weren't too many candidates, I have to say, this time. really were they, George? I mean, there was one really outstanding one who had to win it. I think for me, the second place would probably go to John Arias of Fluminense. He picked up a couple of assists, and he's had a good start to the season. To be fair, Flu came from behind, didn't they, to win over Sport Recife. Again, got a last-minute winner, Everaldo, who I mentioned before, was the man who got the winner. Yeah, he did all right, didn't he, John Arias? I know you're a fan of his. He's still there, plugging away at Flu.
Yeah, they do love a late goal to Fluminense, James. And again, they turned this game around. Sport Recife can't buy a win, but they were ahead in this game until midway through the second half. Where, like you said, Arias, a couple of nice crosses in. I am a fan of him, James. I do think somehow he's still playing for Fluminense. I do think somebody's going to take a punt on him eventually, and and have him in their team. But for now, he does stay there. 27 now, so he's pushing on a little bit, but he's still plugging away, getting goal assists, and he's scored. I think he's got 2 goals so far as well. So he's doing okay. 1 goal, 3 assists. He's had a good start to the season, really. And so Fluminense, and they keep turning around games, don't they? Late goals. They seem to have scored quite a few of those as well. So fair play to them. They're doing all right.
Yeah, they are. It was a big win for them. Obviously, at home, they'd have expected to beat Sport Recife, who, like you said, still are yet to record a win. The only team in the Brasileirão without one so far. But Flu broke their hearts in the last minute, and John Arias was absolutely key to that. But he didn't win the Player of the Round, George. I don't think there was any other candidates. I'm not sure if you did, but the winner had to be Yuri Alberto, who, we haven't spoken about much this season. He's had a very, very slow start to the season, but he really turned up in a big way in Corinthians. A big game for them, really. As we mentioned, we're going to get into it with Dorival Jr. With his first Serie A game. It was a tough one for them against Inter, but Yuri Alberto was the match winner. 3 goals, 4-2 win. Again, there was a late winner and then another one built on the top of that. But this was Yuri Alberto back to the player that we saw last year, wasn't it?
Absolutely, James. Like I've said a few times already in the young part of the season, it's only 7 games in, but I've said a few times, Corinthians, if they're going to go anywhere this season, they need players like Yuri Alberto to step up. If he's going to stay, he might yet go in the summer window. Who knows? But, if players like Alberto and Depay, if they're going to do anything, Corinthians, they need those guys to step up. And Yuri did on this occasion, James, didn't he? And then some, a hat-trick, his first of the season. That takes him up to 4 goals so far. Like you rightly pointed out, he has had a slow start to the season otherwise, but that would have done him great. Really big win to come from behind against a team like Inter, the way, that they are, that the people do forecast them to do very well. Came back, won the game, like you said, 2 very late goals, won it for them in the end. It was a late penalty, and then, like you said, Corondo, he got a 90 plus 13 minute added on to Yuri's 3rd goal. So big win for Dorival Jr. And if that's anything to go by, they'll be full of goals under him. But let's wait and see.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they do have firepower. Dorival Jr., I don't think is well known for teams being particularly top heavy, goal scoring, free scoring. But they were here, like you said, they came from behind twice into and Alberto. The first 2 were really good finishes as well. He really took them well. Didn't look like a man who hasn't been finding the net. And yeah, he's if, like you said, if they're going to turn that form around, and it wasn't like it was kind of desperate before under Ramon Diaz, and they are up to 8th now, so that's more or less for me where they should be. I know they probably think they should be higher. They finished a bit higher last season, but just to consolidate that and then maybe push on next year again. But they don't need to panic. They've obviously got a very good manager in now. They've got a team full of good players. Bidon got an assist as well in that for Yuri Alberto, the young man. We know he's a quality player as well. So yeah, it's all positive for Corinthians. I don't know if you saw the new shirt as well, George. It's been going well on social media. I think got some good reaction. It's nice with the black shoulders and the central night tick, which I always think it looks good, a central manufacturer logo, but it doesn't seem to happen a lot these days.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we love the kits, don't we, James? Well, as it starts to get into it, we start to see more and more. And I think this was unveiled, was it last week? I think they did wear it in the cup game. But yeah, it's a central. The badge is central as well. It does look a nice nice fit. Actually, it looks nice. So yeah, we'll wait to see what other teams bring out, other things. But I think this is like what they do, isn't it? That was last season's shirts. They continue to wear into the start of this season, and then they've changed it just a few weeks in. I think this is what we'll probably start to see more and more of them doing, as we go into it. But yeah, it was a great win. They look good in it as well, doing it, and yeah, it'll have done Dorival quite a lot of good. That I know they play again in the Sudamericana early doors tomorrow morning here against America de Cali, the Colombian side. That's at home as well, so they'll fancy them. You'd fancy them against them as well. So let's wait and see. But if Yuri Alberto, like I said, Yuri and Memphis Depay, they need to fire if they've got anything going this season, Corinthians.
Yep, and as for Inter, just another poor result, really. It's been a difficult start of the season for them as well. Obviously, they did win last time out against Juventude, but they've been stuttering a little bit. They are 9th now, so they're below Corinthians in the table. Not a great start for Roger Mercado. Alan Patrick, I think, is an injury worry now as well. He started the season really, really well. I did get another assist in this one as well, but he looks like he might miss a chunk of games as well. So last season started obviously terribly based on the tragedy with the weather conditions. And this start to this season, after the end of last season, you'd have hoped that they'd have really kind of kicked on and had a proper uninterrupted start, but just hasn't been that way. And I actually am worried about Mercado's future. I think they'd be silly to sack him, but you do wonder if he's just starting to get to that time where he just needs wins, otherwise he might be under some pressure.
Yeah, I think, again, we know that he's not immune to the sack, is he? He did do well last season. He's very well regarded, I think, in Brazil is Roger Mercado, but I think that doesn't make him unsackable. I think if they do start to lose a few more games in a row, not get a result, not get a win, I think he is under pressure, really. They haven't started well. It's a really poor result against Corinthians, is that they've got nearly a week to prepare for the Libertadores game against Atletico Nacional, another Colombian side. That's early doors Friday morning, and then they play early Monday morning here as well against Fogo. That's their next weekend game. So yeah, they've got a little bit of time there to prepare for these games. Hopefully that can stand them in good stead, because really, really disappointing result. And I know they won a couple. They struggled against the 4th division side last midweek in the Copa do Brazil. They need to start pulling out results, really.
Yeah, next week against Fogo looks like a big one again. Fogo, obviously, after a good kind of couple of wins, did lose again this week, which we're going to speak about a little bit later on. So that looks like a big game for Mercado. So yeah, I think they do need to start just getting a little bit more over the line. But this one was all about Yuri Alberto anyway. They couldn't stop him. He is one of the better players in the division. Like you said, George, he might get a move to Europe yet this summer. But for now, he's still doing damage in Brasileirão. So well done to him. He is our player of the round this time. Yeah, well done to Yuri Alberto. And let's move on to the young player of the round, George. And this was an interesting one, actually, as I mentioned there. Breno Bidon did get an assist. So too, George, did Estevão Willian. And who did he assist, George? He assisted our young player of the round for the first time this season, his first time on Talking Brazil Ball.
Well, it's Mr. Vitor Roque, James, with his first goal for Palmeiras. He wins it this this week was, it's about time for many that he scored. I know these two lads, Alberto and Roque, a lot of people would say they are amongst the better players in the division. It's about time. There's a there's a lot of heaviness on his shoulders to succeed and perform. At only 20 years old, he's got that massive price tag on himself. The move to Barca didn't really help him, didn't work out. And now I think there's a lot of pressure on him, probably unfairly, to be fair. But, he would have put pressure on himself to score goals, and now he's got one. He'll be absolutely delighted with it, even though it was just a tap-in, wasn't it? It was a square ball from Estevao. He's not had the best start of the season either, from his standards he set last season. But Roque will be delighted. However it went in, and he got the winner, and a great feeling for him. And he was the only real candidate, I think, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, I think he was really. It was his first goal for more than 900 minutes. So 13 games. I mean, it's a long, long time, really. Like you said, the pressure's been on him a little bit. He's been up for the last couple of years, really, and hasn't really justified that. But yeah, he was very relieved after. He just said he's feeling relief. He's been looking for this goal for a long, long time. And yeah, it was a fitting, really, that Estevao was the man who put it on the plate for him. Obviously, another really young player who has more than justified the hype last season, but like you said, has struggled a little bit at the start of this season. But yeah, he said strikers live for goals. He came for a few goals without scoring, and he kept demanding me to work. I'm very happy with the goal and the victory. So he was talking about Abel Ferreira there, how he's still demanding more from him, and that's the right way to go about it. Sometimes we see these players coddled if they're not performing, and the manager will obviously back them publicly, but you want to see them putting pressure on them to score. Palmeiras is obviously an enormous club. They should be fighting for the title. They will be fighting for the title for sure, but if Vitor Roque isn't performing and not delivering the goals that they expect, then they're going to be further away from that. They do expect that from him. And yeah, like you said, it was a tap-in, but it was a striker's goal. It was a goal that any striker would have been pleased with. And he's off and running now, and hopefully that's the first of many for him, because it'd be nice to see him work it out and actually be a success. He's only got the one cap for Brazil, but Brazil could really do with a number 9, a proper striker again, and that's very much what he is. He's a target man in the sense of he'll play centrally, really. And yeah, in terms of Palmeiras, the likes of Estevao and Facundo Torres, who has had a decent start to the season, to his career there, can kind of feed off him. So very, very positive for them. Obviously, it was a tight win. The only goal of the game, this one, it came in the second half. It was against Vasco, who we did overlook last week, George. We should touch on them in a second. But yeah, just to finish up on Palmeiras, it did put them top of the table. So obviously they had to capitalise on that surprise Flamengo loss against Cruzeiro. They managed to do that. So onwards and upwards now for them, really. Like I said, the Sao Paulo derby next week. And they'll be looking, they haven't scored a lot of goals, to be fair, which is kind of maybe speaks to the form of Vitor Roque. And they've only scored 8 so far this season in 7 games, which isn't what you'd expect for a team top of the league, but they have conceded the least, only 3 goals conceded. So things are looking good for them.
Yeah, things are looking a lot better, James. And you know that I predicted them to sort of fall a little bit this season. That still might happen. But like you said, Roque, a lot hangs on him. Can he fire the goals in? Because we know Estevao is off in, another couple of months, isn't he, off to Chelsea finally. That move seems to be hanging in the balance for ages. And obviously we know he's been going for a long time. It's finally nearly upon us. So, he really needs to find some goals. Torres does as well. I know he has started quite well, but like you said, 8 goals off 7 games. That's quite low when you think about it, but they are top of the table. So, defensive record speaks for itself. So, yeah, I think I'm pleased for Roque, like yourself, because, there's a lot of pressure on him. He's a young lad. It didn't work out at Barca. He's back in his home country. Still a lot of pressure on him, but that first goal is, real sort of thing to get off his back. And yeah, I'm kind of happy for him. And like I said, him and Alberto, maybe if Yuri keeps going, maybe if he does get that move to Europe, perhaps he's been looking at by Brazilian, whoever's going to be their new manager. But like you said, they could really do with a man to put the ball in the net themselves. With the World Cup coming up as well next year, it'll be important for them to get somebody in that mould. Maybe Roque can be that man.
Yeah, he's definitely in with a shout, and he will be. He's on the radar for sure. So if he can get a few goals coming in, then I'm sure he'll be in the mix for definites. Like Vasco, then let's move on to Vasco then, George. So like I said, we did overlook them last year. They did sack the manager, Fabio Carril, which we missed. And they have not yet appointed a new boss, but I have been reading that Fernando Diniz, that old fox, is apparently in talks. So he looks like the man who's probably going to end up there. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously they lost this one. They put up a decent battle. They're in 14th. They're not they haven't been terrible, but they haven't won for quite a long time now. So what are your thoughts on the goings on at the São Januário?
Yeah, no wins in, 6, James, in all competitions. So that's sore for the manager. But Felipe, the interim manager, he said, I think the fans saw a different Vasco. I think the fans were a little bit happy with what they saw. Like you said, put up a little bit of a fight against the team that came second last year. Palmeiras is a formidable opponent. We know this for everybody in Serie A. So Felipe was happy with what he saw from his team. And I think the fans were quite a bit happier as well. It's been disappointing, Anthony. I did say about Capri, didn't I, Capri, that, that I wasn't sure about his... Carril, sorry. I wasn't sure about his name by the sound of it, but also I wasn't sure about his expertise in the division either. So I was worried for them at the start of the season. I am worried a little bit for them. Even if Diniz comes in, he didn't really shine a light on his credentials in 2 teams last year, did he? So, it surprises me that teams are still going for him, to be quite honest. But there you go. He might be able to lift them up out of their stupor a little bit here. But it's not been brilliant. I did see as well that Felipe Coutinho is also on the verge of his contract being terminated by Aston Villa in order for him to potentially get a move permanently to Vasco. He hasn't really pulled up any trees since his move there, but he has shone in odd spells. They do play tomorrow night in the Sudamericana against Académica Puerto Cabello. So that's a Venezuelan side. So maybe a trip to Venezuela can get them out of a bit of a hole they're in. But they need to get that managerial position sorted as soon as, really.
Yeah, maybe it'll be sorted. Won't be sorted by then, but maybe for the weekend. We'll see. We might be talking about Diniz next week. Okay, George, that's a young player of the round. Well done to Vitor Roque. Hopefully he's off and running now for the rest of the season. No, I didn't play the music as well, did I? So I'll play it.
You might have done that on purpose, James. I know you're not a fan of it.
Yeah, it's just a bit shit, isn't it?
What future ahead for this guy?
There we go. Well done, Vitor Roque. Okay, George, let's have a look at the goal of the round. Like we said, you did want Pitter to get it, but he didn't. There were another couple of candidates, I thought, as well. To be fair, I think Caio Jorge was one who you mentioned too, George. He's a player worth waxing lyrical about at the minute. He's had a fantastic start to the season, did well again, and we just let's just touch on them very briefly, Cruzeiro, because, I mean, we haven't really talked about them at all. Leonardo Jardim, the manager, of course, in Brazil for the first time during his career, and he's very quietly doing a super job at Cruzeiro. And yeah, Caio Jorge, a nice bit of footwork and then kind of a bit of a lucky finish in some ways, but it was from some kind of range. It was well taken. And yeah, they put Flamengo to the sword. Gabigol came back to haunt them. In the end, missed a penalty, put in the rebound to win the game for them. So the goal I wanted to talk about as well, I thought Di Arraseta, again, that man, the player of the round, player of the month last month, he has continued his good form. He scored a really nice goal to level the game. But yeah, Cruzeiro went on to win it.
Yeah, Cruzeiro, James, like you said, have just creeped up the table. Escaped the attention of ourselves. But they've won 3 in a row in all competitions. They are now starting to really, really get together under Jardim, and they're probably just starting to starting to gel a little bit. There was a lot of, I think they had quite a few incomings in the winter window, so they're just now starting to bear fruit of what he wants them to do and starting to get the results. And it's a marvelous result against Flamengo, to be fair. Puts them a point behind them. And yeah, that Caio Jorge goal was nice. A little bit of tricky footwork. Defenders couldn't see where the ball was going to go next. Like you said, maybe a little bit of lucky with the finish. I think it did bounce before the goalkeeper might have wrong-footed him a little bit. But Gabigol as well. It was an awful penalty, to be fair. But he got lucky and he scrambled in the winner in the 97th minute. So that would have been very sweet for him as well. I know he left under a little bit of a cloud, I think, for last season. He had those problems with the allegations against him and stuff, and it had been a difficult time for him. So would have felt sweet that for him to win that game for Cruzeiro. So we'll wait to see what they come up with in the coming weeks, James, and can they sustain the form that they're running into now. They do play Sudamericana football. A lot of these teams, a lot of the teams do have midweek games going on. They are playing in Ecuador against Muskuruna in the Sudamericana in very early hours of Thursday morning here. So let's see. But it's really good to see that that Jardim is having a good effect on them.
Yeah, we talk about Brazil number 9. Well, Gabigol might have his eye on that as well. To be fair, he's not played for them for a while, I don't think, but he's experienced 18 caps he's got so far. He's still only 28. He's not past it really. So Pedro's another one who probably have his eye on it, but he couldn't make an impact in this game. Flamengo, a surprise defeat. But yeah, that was not neither of those goals. I thought the Di Arraseta one as well was a good one, but I didn't go for them. I know you were pushing for Pitta, but I just saw the Bahia goal and I just thought it was, it was something quite special, really. I thought the assist for it was what made it such a good goal. Pulgar got the assist. It was just a really, really good piece of play. He kind of got it on the left-hand side and he kind of jinked in between a couple of Botafogo defenders and then he just kind of put it across the goal on the plate for Sousa. The finish was nothing special. It was it was an open goal pretty much, but I just thought the assist was what really made this one a special goal. Eric Pulgar came. Where did he come from, George? He was from Ceará, I think, was he? Or with Mirassol? He was playing in the second division last year at Ceará. Yeah, he was top scorer, I think, for them. And he joined Bahia. He's done all right. He's gone straight into the team, starting a lot of games. And yeah, I just thought this was a beautiful piece of play, beautiful piece of wing play, old-fashioned wing play, jinking in between the defenders. He was faced with 2 of them and somehow he made it through, put the ball on a play, and it was a winning goal as well.
Yeah, it was a lovely bit of play, like you said, James. More for the way it was assisted and made, like you said, than the finish itself. He still needed to put the ball in the net, did Corley, and he did that. So, and it won the game. But Eric Pulgar, not to be confused with Eric Pulgar from Flamengo, of course. But he was top scorer last season, like you said, for Ceará in Serie B. Got his move to Bahia, and again, he's a youngish player still. And I thought the build-up play, even before he got the ball, was quite nice as well. They won the ball back in the middle of the pitch, worked it out to Pulgar on the left-hand side. He did his thing and put it in for Corley, who put it into the net. And yeah, you know that Bahia, James, obviously, the City group, again, we talked about Red Bull and their might in the football world. Well, obviously the City group do have that as well, and Eric Pulgar will have his sort of thinking of, if I can do well here, Man City will be looking, but also likes of Girona will be looking as well. So it's a chance for him to get into European football as well. If he wants to do that, I'm sure that is the aim, isn't it, for a lot of players playing in Brazil. They might see it as a little bit of a stepping stone towards a European venture if they're of a young enough age and stuff like this. Definitely, I think at 24, I think he would maybe fall into that category of seeing it as a potentially could move on to better things if you see it that way. But yeah, it was a lovely bit of play. Bahia are doing fantastic, James. I'm very happy because I'm a fan of Rogério Ceni, and they've started fantastic. I mean, they've won what 3, 4, 5 in a row, 1-0. It's an incredible achievement, really.
Yeah, it's actually the longest streak without conceding a goal in Ceni's reign at Bahia. So he's been really, really pleased with the improvement of them this season. They didn't start super well, and we thought maybe, the back end of last season was a bit of a struggle for them, wasn't it? We thought maybe Ceni might even be on the way out. Maybe he'd be looking to be poached by another team, but he stayed at Bahia and he's looking like having another really good season for them. I mean, in amongst those wins, obviously they beat the champions here. Fogo, as we know, have their own struggles, but they are still champions. In the game before that, they beat Palmeiras away, so the runners up last year. So they're two massive results for them, and yeah, you can't really be anything but kind of excited and intrigued for what they do next. Really, they've got Flamengo next in the league, actually, so Flamengo might be panicking. I mean, that's some run of fixtures, isn't it? Palmeiras, Fogo, and then Flamengo. Two of them away as well. So, but Bahia, they'll be going into that with a lot of confidence, and thinking why they can't get another clean sheet and another win again. Yeah, 5 in a row without conceding, 5 1-0 wins. It's not the most exciting as a fan, but in terms of a manager, you can understand why Ceni's really, really delighted by that, and so he should be. In terms of Fogo, I mean, we've been saying Paiva's been on the brink. He's still there. This, I mean, in the context of what Bahia have been doing, maybe it should have been expected. I don't know, but another really poor result for them.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Bahia, people used to sing, I know Arsenal fans used to sing 1-0 to the Arsenal, didn't they? No, the Bahia fans are saying 1-0 to the Bahia. I don't know, but it seems that way over the last 5. But yeah, Fogo in a real struggle, aren't they now? They play this evening in the Libertadores against Carabobo, the Venezuelan side. They're in Venezuela as well. Maybe at this point they see it as a little bit of a hindrance, a little bit of an interruption, because they need to get back onto winning ways in the stringing some wins together in the Brasileirão, really, because it's a bit of a stop-start. We know they won against Flu, then they won in the Cup, and now they're back to losing games again, are they? I don't know. We mentioned the game against Inter on Monday. It's a big game. Those two teams, need to get back to winning ways. Really, they're languishing now in 12th position. It's not good, really. And Paiva, again, people start to say, hey, is it time for him to go after that defeat to Bahia? Bahia, though, let's not take anything away from them. They're doing really, really well. And Ceni, he's an experienced coach. People might forget it, but he is. And, he's got them playing well. So it's no disgrace to lose to them at this moment in time. But the Fogo fans, that won't be any consolation to them. They need wins and they need them quickly. Otherwise, Paiva James is going to see his end, I think, at Fogo, really.
Yeah, they are, of course, holders of the Libertadores as well, so they do obviously want to go strong in that. They've only won one of the 3 games so far, so they do have work to do in that as well. They did beat Carabobo. That was the one team they beat. You'd expect them probably to beat them again, but yeah, they do have work to do to make sure they get through in that as well. So that they'll be hoping to. I think they'll be hoping. I mean, you say it'd be a distraction. I don't think so. I think they'll see it as a way to get back to winning ways, and they'll want to be doing well in both competitions, but they're not doing well in either so far. Anyway, George, that brings to the end match day 7 roundup. The awards have all been dished out. So why don't you give us a rundown of what we got to look forward to in match day 8?
Absolutely, James. It would be a pleasure of mine. So Saturday, the 10th of May, match day 8 starts with Fortaleza against Juventude. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff UK time. Then all at 10:30 p.m. is Gremio against RB Bragantino. Mirassol host Corinthians, and Vitória host Vasco da Gama. Into Sunday the 11th of May then, 1 a.m. Flamengo host Bahia. Sport Recife then host Cruzeiro at 8 p.m. And then at 9:30 p.m. Galo hosts Fluminense, and Palmeiras, big Sao Paulo derby. Sao Paulo are the visitors. 12th of May then, Botafogo hosts Inter at midnight. And the match day concludes, James, with Santos hosting Ceará on Tuesday the 13th of May. That's a midnight kickoff.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what's catching your eye in that one then, George? What are you going for game of the round?
See, that's the first time I've looked at the fixtures for this week, James. I know there's the big, like I said, the big Sao Paulo derby, which I think somebody's probably going to have to take. But, I don't know. Depends on how you're feeling, really, because and there's the Flamengo Bahia game there as well. But I'm going to look at the sort of towards the bottom end of the table, and 2 teams that we haven't focused on fully so far, and that's Vitória against Vasco, James. Vasco might have the manager in by then. Who knows? But yeah, this is the one that I'm looking at this week.
Yeah, I was interested in that as well. I think just because, Vitória we don't seem to have covered. Maybe Denise will be in by then. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously the Sao Paulo derby is a big one, but I don't know if it's really the most interesting game. Sao Paulo obviously need to win, but we did look at them this week. We spoke about Palmeiras a bit as well. But I think more interesting is probably Fogo against Inter. I know we've spoken about the both teams a little bit today, but I do feel like that's one that's got a bit more riding on it, in that both teams are mid-table. Whoever loses that, if there is to be a loser, is probably starting to think about packing in any kind of hopes of a top 2 or 3 finish, and starting to worry about maybe a mid-table or even worse. So I think that's an interesting one. We've spoken about Paiva there. Obviously, is going to be in place for that, unless something poor happens in Venezuela and they lose that. But I think that's going to be interesting. So that's going to be my pick. I think my boys, the Colorados, and see how they get on against Fogo. Yeah.
I think one thing we have overlooked in this episode, James, we haven't mentioned that Santos have finished their search for a managerial appointment. It's a bit of a surprise one, James. I don't know if you've seen this. It happened sometime last week. It's a man named Kleber Xavier, who is a Brazilian man, but it's his first managerial appointment of his career. He's in his 60s. He's very well versed. He has a lot of experience as an assistant. He is Tite's second-hand man. So if you can't get Tite, well, why not go for Kleber Xavier, because he is his second man, basically. Followed him around to all sorts of clubs, including the Brazilian national side when Tite was manager of the national team. So it is his first managerial appointment, James. Just your reaction on that, if I could, just before we wrap up.
Yeah, never heard of him, obviously. So a very bold appointment, given that he's never been a head coach before. He's not a young man. At 61, he's obviously incredibly experienced. He's probably worked. I mean, he will have worked with various players. Will have worked with Neymar, crucially, really, for that 6-year spell. It's a long time to be in the national team. It's a big chunk of Neymar's international career, which is probably, you'd imagine it might have been in some of the thinking, even though we don't want to think the players are picking the manager. I'm sure Neymar will have had an influence in that. So it's a bold one. You just don't know how he's going to be. Tite, of course, is very well respected. And if Tite respects him, then, who are we to say that he's not going to be a success? But he's going to have to learn very quickly. Santos obviously lost again. Big result for Gremio. And they're the second bottom of the table. They badly need to start picking up wins. They've got an enormous game, which actually, having said that, I'm going to pivot and pick Santos against Ceará as my game of the week then, because I think we're going to have to take a look at Kleber Xavier and Santos. We haven't really gone into them too much recently, and they are struggling. So I'm interested in Fogo and Inter, but let's focus on the bottom end of the table. You're looking at Vitória there. Let's look at Santos and see how he starts then.
Fair enough. Well, he was actually in charge of the Gremio defeat, James, and he bemoaned it. He said if it was fair, it would have been a draw. I think he was quite happy with how they performed in his first game ever as a manager, really. So I think he was speaking about Neymar as well. Saying that I think he was quite happy to work with him again. But it's like you said, it's a bold move. Is that really? You're in a kind of relegation scrap potentially, and you're going to appoint a manager who's never had a position in a first team, and on top of it being in the top division as well, it's quite a step up for him. But like you said, very, very, very experienced in terms of assistant manager. He's been everywhere really.
Yeah. So he'll know others. He'll have worked with other players as well before. So could be a kind of shrewd appointment. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, let's put the spotlight on him next week and have a look at that. Okay, George. All that's left to do then is run down the table. So why don't you let us know how things stand after match day 7?
Yeah, it would be a pleasure of mine, James. In top is Palmeiras on 16. Second, RBB on 16 as well. Third, Flamengo on 14. Fourth, Cruzeiro on 13. Fifth is Flu on 13. Sixth, Bahia on 12. Seventh, Ceará on 11. Eighth is Corinthians on 10. Ninth is Inter on 9. Galo are 10th on 9. 11th, Sao Paulo on 9. 12th, Fogo on 8. Gremio 13th on 8. Vasco 14th on 7. 15th is Juve on 7. 16th, Mirassol on 7. Into the relegation zone, James, 17th position of Fortaleza on 7. 18th for Vitória on 6. 19th for Santos on 4. And popping up the table, as always seems to be the case, a Sport Recife on 2 points, James. Winless, but not pointless.
No, 2 draws isn't awful. If they'd have managed to get 1 win, even 1 win really would have made a big difference to Sport Recife at this stage. But their hunt for a win goes on next week. Anyway, I think Peeper's still there, isn't he? I mean, we haven't really looked at them too much, but I think he's still there.
I mean, they've got Cruzeiro, James, on the next game, and that's on Sunday evening. But yeah, he's still there. I think the chairman has come out and backed him. Some people might say that's not a good thing, but we wait to see. He's still there, so yeah, let's see. I mean, they do badly need a win, because if you go into the 8, I mean, Cruzeiro's a really difficult game to get into the way they're going. So, like I said before, I don't think he's got too long left. But what do I know? The chairman's come out and backed him. So there you go.
Well, that's sometimes not a good sign. The chairman comes out and publicly backs. It's the dreaded vote of confidence, isn't it? Let's see if it does for Pieper. We haven't really looked at him too much, but he sounds like he might get another chance. Anyway, George, it's been another good episode there, another good week. Lots of interesting matchups, lots of interesting storylines as well. So, another good one.
Yeah, it's been a good episode, that, James. We're looking forward to next week. See what happens there. But thank you very much for everybody listening, for everybody watching, and a deuce. We will see you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.
We're breaking it down, bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Summer vibes, we're dancing in in Brazil, go spreading love in every way. In the sound of paradise, we're here to stay.